Welcome back to Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. I am, as always, Chat Show. How the hell are you, and happy damn New Year. My goodness, you made it through another year. Look at you. That is still damn good ice-cold water. How were your holidays? Write to us and let us know. kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. We are coming.
I was just thinking that too. I'm like, do we really care?
You don't care about their holidays.
You know, it's interesting. I have some fan mail right here.
With holiday info?
Nope.
No.
No, because you know what? There might be. You know what? There is one, actually. There is one. There's a Christmas greeting. Sammy and Jamie, right over there. We come to you live from the West Side Comedy Theater. Go to westsidecomedy.com. Check out their calendar and their amazing shows right here on the very stage that I am sitting, and our guest is as well. We'll get to him in 94 seconds.
My sketch team that I adore now, Back Alley Racket Club, we have a show once a month. It's the first Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m.
Yes, check that out immediately.
Live sketch comedy.
You'll be up at San Francisco Sketch Fest.
We do. We got accepted to Sketch Fest, and we have 2 shows there on...
Come on. Nice.
Oh, I know
really
it.
well done.
Check
Really.
the Sketch Fest schedule.
Yeah, no pressure.
I know it's the...
Go to sfsketchfest.com.
It's the 19th and 20th.
Nicely
That's
done.
it.
Way to pull it out.
19th and 20th.
Yeah. I'll be there interviewing the great Bill Burr. We'll do an afternoon.
I was getting confused because we're going 2 weeks. We'll be there this weekend
13th.
for you to interview Bill Burr, and then we're going the next weekend. That's when my team.
Where I'll do a sit-down panel with Pamela Adlon and everybody from Better Things.
Correct.
That following weekend as well. Got some shows up there. Sam, you headed to?
No, I'm headed to the other fest in January. The Sundance
Film Festival.
I have a little thing, and it's not a big deal. I got a little thing in the festival.
Let's not make a thing?
I don't want to make a thing about it.
Okay, seems like you already have, though.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up, but
You weren't.
it's a little short. It's really not a big deal. You can check it out. It's screening the 23rd, 4th, and 5th. It's not.
Are you in a trailer or something?
No, I don't think we have one posted yet. It's pretty hush-hush about that sort of thing. They like to keep it under wraps. But if anyone is really interested, find me on the Twitters at Sam Levine, 2 M's. They know it's not important.
Spielbergo?
Senor Spielbergo.
Non-union Mexican equivalent.
Damn right.
Yeah. Speaking of wonderful movies, Jamie and I went to the Shape of Water last night. We went to the Motion Picture Theater as opposed to looking at a screener. Jamie suggested, and man, oh man, am I glad we did.
It seemed like it's very visually stunning.
It's a big screen experience.
Yeah, it was great.
I highly recommend it. It's my favorite picture of the year. I'm just going to say it.
Wow.
I'm just going to say it shot to the top. Recent guests, you asked why you want to check out the show in our library, available on the YouTube and the Earwolf and elsewhere. Brian Cranston, Billy Bob Thornton, Jen Tilly, Christopher Guest, Lauren Graham, and Ricky Gervais, no big deal. What's that?
I've never heard of any of those people.
Upcoming, you ask. All right, stop with the asking. How about that? Pamela Adlon, Louis Anderson, and the return of David Harbour. Oh, boy. We may be seeing him tonight. We made the cut for the Amazon after party of the Golden Globes. We didn't actually make the cut to sit.
That's the fun part.
It is.
Wait, why would he be at the Amazon party?
Well, he won't be. But all the parties are at the Hilton. They're all in the same building, yeah.
That seems dangerous.
To mention it?
No, just in general. It's like at the State of the Union, they always got to keep some designated survivors out of there.
That's right. I would like to see Netflix and Amazon just go toe-to-toe. Somebody breaks out in a fight.
I don't feel safe having all our cherished celebrities in the same building at the same time.
Well, you're not wrong.
It seems like a security risk.
All right, let's get to some fan mail, unless either of you have anything else to report.
I got nothing.
Weird. That's just weird. I'm going to say it. Write to us again at kpcsfanmail@gmail.com. This one is a tweet 5. See if you can find one of those for our guests on the line there. Tweet 5 for me. Weird. Just going to say it. Fast food or fine dining? Fine dining. Mashup names or acronyms? Neither. Spontaneous sex jokes or perfectly crafted puns? The latter. Thrift stores or clearance racks? Jewish? Kidding me? The Jews don't really go to the thrift store, do they?
That's can you do these again and I'll answer these for you?
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's do that. That's way more fun. Jamie, answer for me. Fast food or fine dining?
Fine dining to the point where when we go to fast food restaurants, he acts like he doesn't know what he's doing, so he makes sure that everybody there knows that he doesn't normally eat.
Unless it's Five Guys, and then that's the best burger and fries in town. Mash up names and acronyms.
I think you like a mashup name.
Oh, interesting. Name
But
one.
like my trivia team name, Nickel Back to the Future.
Boom. Spontaneous sex
That's a
jokes
mashup
and
name.
perfectly crafted puns. We love puns. Puns are where it's
I
at.
do like an acronym, though.
We're on to the next one.
No, sorry.
Thrift stores and clearance racks. Thrift stores for you, clearance racks for me.
That's not true. I only like
Oy.
thrift stores for costuming purposes.
The casting process is designed to fail, or if you're not creating, you're waiting.
Both?
Yep. That's just quoting me back to myself so that I can sit here and what? Glow?
Yeah.
Cry? This letter comes to us from Saeed Seminger. Seminger?
Say
Sure.
it. Say it.
Seminger.
That's a name.
Saeed Seminger. Hey, Kevin. Good start. I really enjoy listening to KPCS after hearing Sam, spelled correctly, mention the show on another podcast.
There it is.
What are the chances of that?
I say it every podcast.
I immediately went to iTunes to check it out. I thought your story about Michael Clark Duncan was very interesting and wish you would talk more about experiences with other celebrities. Can't wait to read your book. Best wishes, Saeed.
Jason said that you misread that. That T5 was for me.
Really? J-Man, why even point that out? That's my question. I mean, everyone knows I'm going to fuck many things up during the course of every single episode. Why do you have to add to the pile? Yeah, whatever. There's job security cracking wise. All right, we have time for just one more because it's a long one, so I'm gonna get to it. Dear Chat Show, around this time of year, this is the holiday one. As the wife, this actually made me choke up. I shouldn't have said that, it's too late. Around this time of year, as the wife, kids, and I spend time with the extended family, we tend to reflect on the previous year and share those things that we are thankful for. My family has shared several times that they're very thankful for my improved health. A little backstory for that to make any kind of sense. My wife of 19 years and I had our first child, Bree, back in December of '04. I was a pretty active person up to that point. Then the combination of a kid, combined with a full-time job, combined with half-time grad school sort of took up that time that I took care of myself, or at least I had left. Then our second daughter, Brooke, came a couple of years later. Well, I put on sympathy weight each time my wife got pregnant. Within that few years, my active level went to nearly nothing, while I put on about 70 pounds. I made several attempts since Brooke was born to try and stop and also start running again and working out, but each one lasted only a couple of weeks, either because I got too busy, but pushed my health to the side, or I hurt myself by trying to do too much too soon. Trying to get back into shape overnight. Blood pressure went up, cholesterol went up, everything going in the wrong direction. Cut to, good timing on that. Cut to last summer when I just got fed up to the point that I couldn't take it anymore and swore to myself that I had to get healthy for my family, or I was going to be gone for them too soon. I made a baby step plan to change my lifestyle by making taking care of myself a priority. It started very basic at the end of July, beginning of August. I just started walking, trying to make minor changes to the diet. The walking was a killer after a first couple days, and then it wasn't difficult, just unbelievably boring. Merely by chance, when looking up something online, I stumbled across your first interview with Rob Riggle. It was great. Then I watched the second, but didn't have time to finish, so I downloaded the podcast so that I could listen on a walk. After that, I was hooked. The KPCS was the thing that helped me consistently back into workouts. I couldn't wait to walk so that I could listen to the show. I'm down 25 pounds since August and haven't gone more than 2 days in a row without working out. So getting back to my family, I just want to share a thank you from them and also send you my own. I can't thank you enough for including me and the other listeners in your conversations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Getting out of your face now. Happy New Year, happy holidays to you and yours. Greg from McMinnville, Oregon. That is heartwarming and delightful. I like it very much, very much. Greg, continued success to you and the effort. And yeah, for the family, for the kids. That is your best reason. We'll get to you then afterwards. Perfect timing. Run that right in, Kenny. Everyone's favorite floor director. We get to our guest now. I'm going to do it. I felt like a Larry King moment when I was writing this up. Our guest today was Oscar nominated for his acting clinic in the Jim Brooks Laugher, As Good as It Gets, which, as it turns out, was not true for Mr. Greg Kinnear. Please welcome him to the table. Huh? Larry King inspired.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Inspired by
Thank
the King. You must have been on Larry's show a time or three. No?
I did do Larry's show a time.
Yeah.
I believe I did it maybe once. And he came on I had a talk show at NBC.
Yes, you did.
He came on, as did you. He came on, I think, a couple of times, actually. But the first time that I ever had any sort of conversation with Larry King was when I was in college. He had the late night show at midnight in the wee small hours.
Overnight.
You probably listen to this
all
too,
the
right?
time.
I mean, it was
Phenomenal.
something. It was something.
Way better than the CNN show.
And he had on, I don't know why on this particular night, but he had on, I believe it was a porn star.
Sure.
He had strange guests, and I don't even know what the hell they were talking about, but on this particular evening, I think I was back at the dorm, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get on this show. And the guys were like, no, you're not gonna do it. And of course, they gave you the little 1-800 number, and I called in there, and sure enough, I hear, okay, stand by for Larry. You know, somebody answers very quickly, and he says, what's your question? I said, I just wanted to ask, I didn't even have a question. What's it like? And he says, okay, stand by for Larry.
What's it like?
Goes, Tucson, Arizona, hello. Longest pause in show business history, followed by, how you doing tonight, Larry?
Way to bring it, Indiana.
Long pause from Larry. What's your question, please?
Oh my God!
And then I puked something out and then got off the stage as quickly as possible. But that was my entrance into show business, really. Did you national level?
Did you mention that to him when he later appeared on your show?
I think I did.
Yeah, probably.
He didn't think it was very funny. No. But I always thought it was a unique sort of story and connection that we shared.
Yeah.
And will for many years.
Yeah, I mean, he always has been a special breed of doing that job, you know, in so many ways. There was, and we've done a thing on this show where we celebrate him since the, I think, conception of the show, the Larry King game, which we'll attempt to play later. But
there's a Larry King game.
Oh yes, there is.
Wow. You not only save lives out there, you play the Larry King game.
We offer up a little enjoyment.
Good.
Yeah, and it's fun at parties. Speaking of your NBC late night talk show, later with Greg Kinnear.
Yes. In
fact, I think you learned before you came back to America and had School Days, DAZE, with Greg Kinnear to put your name in the title.
I think I did have yes, I had stuck my name in there. Sure. Yeah.
It's the best way to almost guarantee that you will not be fired.
That's right. No, it was a fatal mistake with Talk Soup, actually, that I never jammed the name in there, but I never really thought about it. It just, but you're right. It's a great, I mean, look at this. It says Kevin Pollak's chat show.
Yeah.
They can't let go of this guy.
No. Was it, who was fired from their own show that they developed for her? She was the sidekick to Mary Tyler Moore. Rhoda.
Oh, Rhoda.
That actress, that wonderful actress whose name Sam knows. Oh boy. We didn't all just turn 105.
No.
Did we really all just turn? Usually it's just me.
No, I don't.
We go to the 35-year-olds. This is why we have the young brains on the show, and you can't pull out Rhoda?
No, you're looking at the wrong age group here. 35, we're just too young to have seen Rhoda. We know it existed.
I don't know what you're talking about either, come to think of it. I have no idea. This Rhoda name you keep throwing around.
All right.
Valerie,
all of us.
Valerie something.
Valerie Harper.
Yes. I knew it.
That's how we put it together. Valerie something.
Proud of us, guys.
Valerie Harper.
I'm like Valerie.
Yeah.
I was. Ooh.
So she was. They created a show called Valerie, starring her, and she was replaced. Look it up. So we first met, I believe, on your NBC show later with the Greg Kinnear, and I want to say I believe that was just before. I believe it was just before you were chosen by Oscar-winning director Sidney Pollack, no relation, for his remake of Sabrina. I believe it was like right because you were still doing the show, right? When
I was.
When that came along?
Yes.
So I went through the research, thanks J-Mac, trying to find where I know you studied broadcasting at university, again, Tucson. Mm-hmm. You came back to the United States to find higher learning, and you ended up in Arizona.
I did.
Strong.
Tucson, Arizona, the Harvard of the Pac-12.
That's right.
U of A.
The Harvard of the Pac-12. I'm not sure I've heard it called that before. That's brilliant. But I was trying to find where you actually studied acting, because I unfortunately had no training. I started in stand-up comedy and then hated school so much I refused to attend an acting class.
Yeah.
Once I moved here. Did you actually study in school as well?
You know, I didn't ever really study acting, no. In case that hasn't been painfully clear to your audience.
Well, no, but listen, I'm not proud of it either, but it just happens to be a fact.
Yeah, it's a fact.
There's some of us who just, it's not in the trajectory of how you learn to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and not that Danny Day-Lewis is looking over his shoulder at either one of us.
That's right.
Especially now.
No, he's feeling safe.
Now
He's retired now. He doesn't
Are
have
his
to.
friends calling him Danny?
Danny
ever?
Day?
Danny Day?
I think they call him
Great.
D-Day.
It's got to be great.
Fuck off, Danny Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to think that the Irish bloke.
Or even Dan.
Yeah.
Would be good.
Dan
you
Day.
get on that kind of thing, right?
Dan Lewis.
Yeah. Dan. What's up? It's Kinnear. What are you doing?
You must have Irish roots.
Scotch Irish.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're right, though. I was, what was your question?
Still doing the talk show when Sabrina came along, because I was wondering if you studied acting, or were you just like me learning how to break down a scene and going auditions and going out there and doing that?
I really wasn't. I wasn't doing a lot of auditions. I had gotten out here and done just kind of fallen into. Aside from selling light bulbs and PVC, which kind of was my first gig out of college, just to try and pay some bills. When I got to LA, I worked as an assistant somewhere. I ended up getting a job as there was a cable channel starting before E was E. It was called Movie Time, and I ended up becoming one of the hosts on that.
Right.
So I did that kind of host. Suddenly, I had a job with a camera.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very nice job, but paid
Didn't
the
matter.
bills.
It was
And
a job.
I was a job, and I was suddenly doing broadcasting, and that's kind of what I was doing when Sydney ended up making the call to me to come in and meet with him, which was a kind of wild long shot. The truth is, he's from a small town in Indiana about 20 miles up the road from the very small town I'm from in Indiana, and I just think he couldn't believe anybody was from this part of the country living in Los Angeles. So our first meeting was honestly just about, what do you remember about that? And we talked, and then he had me at the end of the meeting read a couple of lines, which was terrifying. But he made it as easy as he could. He just said, "Hey, let's just do this. I'll be Sabrina."
Sure.
So there's already he wasn't taking it.
It's already a
seriously,
problem.
and it was a little problem, but we just went through a few lines, and then he said, "Great, okay, thanks. That was fun. Nothing's going to happen, but thank you." He was very kind of nice and dismissive like that. And then,
Nothing's gonna happen?
Yeah, he did. He started, with very low. I think he came in very honestly with low expectations for this to ever lead to anything. I don't think he wanted me to be calling my agent, going, "Have we heard from Sid today?" And I actually appreciated that.
Right.
And
it'd be nice if more people were a little straightforward during a meeting.
I think so.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I don't think we did hear much until like a month later. He had me come back and meet him again, and it kind of started like that.
Well, they were probably playing the name game, I assume, with the studio in terms of who was going to play that part.
Yeah.
And they go down the list. That's always a fun phone call. I think during the 90s, my agent would say, they got an offer out to so-and-so, but if it doesn't work out, you're on a short list.
Doesn't it make you feel great, too, when they throw out the name of who the person is, who's probably going to not only get the job, but is obviously of way more inherent value than you.
Absolutely. In fact, every time I am offered something, I'm taken aback, thinking about 30 other actors that I personally would have gone to.
Oh, God.
At least 10. At least a solid 10.
Sure. I had never done that before.
Thank
you for introducing that great idea to me, Kevin.
And then I say to the director every time, never tell me who else you went to before offering me this part.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't deal with that. So there you are. He circles back a month later and you find yourself I mean, are there a series of more where you're going to meet with Harrison? You're going to do some, because that first time,
I never met with Harrison until we were doing the movie.
not even a chemistry.
Not a chemistry meeting with
just
Harrison,
Sidney going
no.
with his gut.
Just Sidney.
Which is a kind of.
And by the way, there's not that many. You've worked with some. There's just not that many guys, probably less today than ever,
Yeah.
of those guys who have that ability or
Yeah.
had that ability to just say, this is the way it's happening. And
Right.
the studio says, okay.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they
that
didn't even
that
have the
existed.
balls to say to Sidney, "We don't get it."
Right.
But okay.
Right,
They wouldn't
exactly.
even say, "We don't get it."
It's true.
Yeah.
So having an 800-pound gorilla in your corner is not such a bad thing. But I didn't meet Harrison until I got to New York, and I'm not sure I met Julia before.
Right.
We did get together and obviously had rehearsals and all of that, and I'm sure he could have pulled the plug if that had gone badly, but he didn't.
And did you work with anyone before you went to rehearsals? 'Cause
No, he was adamant not to do. He said, "No, God, don't do that."
I had that also. My first big shot with Barry Levinson.
Oh,
He was
boy.
very
Avalon.
adamant.
But you are fantastic at.
Well,
That
let's
is-
not
come
fight
on,
like
come
this.
on, come on, come on, you too.
It's a great holiday. You
Stop
too,
checking the
Kenny.
phone.
Kenny, stop placating.
That is a great
But he-
movie. I love that movie. And by the way, listening to Tom Hanks on this show, I didn't quite understand. Did he have a beef with Avalon? Because I'm like, what is possibly? Where are you taking a shot at that
Yeah.
movie of all things?
So I think what you're referring to is, and I haven't watched that interview, even though we reposted it recently, where when I first met him, it was at Saturday Night Live. I went to visit Dana Carvey. We were talking about him, who was the only person I knew from the old days of San Francisco stand-up. So I was visiting him, and Tom Hanks says, "Oh yeah, you were in that new movie Avalon," and he was in that. You've hosted SNL. He was in that dark late Tuesday night that goes till 4 a.m. before the Wednesday thing, and it's a dour, very dark world that I stepped into.
Sure.
And he just had some new, fresh meat walk into the room that he could fuck with.
Yeah.
So he thought it would be hilarious, and he wrote me. I mean, we've stayed in contact and stuff, but he wrote me out of the blue an email like 8 months ago saying, "You know what? I was sitting back, I finally had a little time to myself, and it dawned on me that I never actually owned just how much of a prick I was in the room that night in New York." I know from 20-something years
This is
ago.
after the podcast.
Yes.
When he has a chance in person to make the apology.
To own it.
He doesn't own it there.
Nope.
He waits another 3.5 years.
Or more, yeah. So that night he just thought
This is scandalous.
He thought it would be hilarious to attack the one movie that no one should ever attack. That's what he was going for.
Oh.
Yeah. That it would be so ironic to attack Avalon because it's a sweet family saga.
But what was the attack?
Exactly.
What was the attack? No, you already answered the question.
Oh, sorry. So it's been so long I don't remember specifically because the whole thing was ridiculous.
Right.
It was
just taking shots. And
Yeah, it was like,
well, that movie, and you, and the.
But the family. Oh, it's all about the family. They come to America. That's heartwarming. Who's going to go see that?
Right. All right.
And I remember thinking, well, technically, no one really.
Well, if you're allowed to write letters of apology 10, 12 years later, I'm got to get to work, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a lot.
Well, let's go down the list now, shall we? Of all the.
Jeez.
Let's talk. Let's jump back to present day. So I'm very excited that Electric Dreams is finally going to drop.
Yeah.
I've been waiting and hearing and hoping and waiting.
I understand you'll be at the Amazon party tonight, and if I had been invited, I'd see you there.
Should I tell them how excited I am? So, is it next week? When?
I believe it drops. Is that the term? I think, in fact, your email said excited about Electric Dreams dropping, and I
Yes.
instantly thought,
There's another term I don't know.
There's another term that just dates me again.
Well,
Yes,
it's all on a
drops.
need to care basis for you.
It's on the, I believe it's the 12th. Yeah.
That's what I thought. The 12th would be Wednesday.
It's funny because we did a little Q&A for it at LACMA the other day, and I was Friday, right?
Friday the 12th.
right?
Yeah.
We
did a Q&A
did a little
at
Q&A at
LACMA.
LACMA, and I was talking to Michael Dinner, who directed my episode and produced the whole piece, and it was a big undertaking. They did half of them in the UK and half of them in Chicago, and And he was telling me that I was saying to him, when's our episode? Which one is our episode? He goes, they all come out at the same time. And I was like, oh yeah. Like that idea, which I guess just, I haven't really done one of those cable shows before, but just the idea that they're all there, all in immediate time. There is no first episode, second episode, fifth episode. It's all here. It's all now.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Greg.
I know it has. I know it has.
Have you been busy?
You tweeting son of a bitch.
Have you been raising 3 daughters all this time?
I
You
have.
somehow, how did they not turn you on to things like Stranger Things on Netflix and other shows that they might be binging? Because you've got like a...
Yeah, I do. I guess listen. I know. I understand.
Sure.
I'm not trying to sound completely like a Luddite, but I definitely am a little still catching up. I feel like I'm always like with technology. I feel a little behind.
Yeah. So it's anthology. There'll be different episodes, and this project took quite a while to bring to, is my understanding.
Yeah. He got a hold of. I think they have something like 120 Philip K. Dick stories.
Right.
And he was he's obviously incredible and fascinating writer who, in a way, somebody made the point the other night that he really didn't predict anything. He wasn't a futurist in the sense that the world will be like this. The narrative of all his stories were very human. It's really about, yes, it's in the future, and yes, there's strange events going on around you, but it's really about the human condition interacting with each other.
I think it's one of the reasons, I'm going to speak for myself only because I've learned that I love Twilight Zone so much, is that a lot of it takes place in the future also, or their future at the time, but it's more about the human condition always.
Totally. Yeah. Which is the reverse of what a lot of stuff in sci-fi ends up being, and it's why it's usually kind of bad and a lot of times doesn't hold a lot of interest for me, is that when it is flipped, and there's been great examples of it, Minority Report I thought was incredible.
Yeah, me too.
If you follow the story of the human condition first and then make all the other Ooga Booga stuff second, it works better.
And did you shoot in Chicago, or do you?
So I got the Chicago call up, in spite of the fact my wife is from UK, and we would have probably found a way to traipse over there and make a whole charade out of some UK time. I was in Chicago, which isn't bad. Great city.
Damn
Love it.
fine town.
Damn fine town.
And
in
not too
March.
far from
Great time.
technically where you grew up. Not
That's right.
Terribly far.
That's right. Went down and saw the cousins in Champaign, Illinois for a little visit, and we had a great time. But this episode's called The Father Thing. It's the episode is, I read it and it reminded me, one of my favorite movies, 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Oh, wow.
How great was that, right?
Donald Sutherland. Let's hear it, people.
I mean, let's hear it for Donald Sutherland. He's so, he has an incredible body of work, but he's extraordinary in that movie.
Yeah. And
so is everybody. It just has such a cool vibe. And it's kind of based on that same idea. It's basically a young son whose father, starts to go through this change, and he's not sure at first what's happening, but I suppose with the name The Father Thing, I've given too much away. But he starts to learn that his father is otherworldly.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Oh, that's exciting as hell. I am excited for the show.
Yeah,
me too.
Friday the 12th.
They're all different, all very different stories, and yet, and I haven't seen them all, but I've seen a couple. And
You have seen a couple?
Yeah.
So who's in some of the other ones that
You have Terrence is in. What am I thinking of?
Valerie Harper.
No, it's not. It's not Valerie Harper. I'm bad with names.
Me too.
Sorry, Steve Buscemi, Terrence Howard. Who's terrific.
Yeah.
A whole medley of people.
Yeah, those are the two guys I remember.
Anna Paquin.
Great.
is in one.
Well, people can go online and check it out immediately. Yeah.
How long are you going to torture me with this? We're going to go through the name game on every project I've ever done.
No, not all of them, but several of them. Our mutual pal, Rob Moran, did tell me.
There's the over-under.
There it is.
There it is. Ring the bell. It's a drinking game. You hear the name Rob Moran, have yourself a cocktail out there.
That's 2. We just hit the over. Shit. Damn it. Tell me about the premise of the film that you directed. Now, I leapt into the directing thing a couple of years ago, and after putting it off forever, what was the process for you in terms of deciding to finally jump in? Because, the actors have it the easiest on the set of every movie. I don't care if it's The Revenant, even.
Yeah.
You're still the guy who's working the least.
Right.
Whereas the director is the opposite of that in terms of overseeing everything and technically responsible for everything.
Right. Well, this was a strange, it wasn't something that I had been pursuing. It's not something that I was ever, I love acting. It wasn't something that I was born to do as a director. It wasn't like something what I really want to do as director. It really wasn't.
Me either.
It was kind of based on a story. A guy, great writer who'd written Liar, Liar and a bunch of stuff, had brought this idea of a young guy who was going through a crisis, personal crisis, and he starts to consider suicide. It's a pretty dark beginning, and ultimately he meets another guy who has everything.
Right.
Guy who has the world by the, and that guy ends up actually taking his own life. And he is wondering how this could be. How could somebody who has everything in the world, that idea, that sort of fantasy of what we all project onto other people as having,
he's got it all.
How could he do that? And in a way, it kind of morphs into a comedy mystery about what happened, and he wants to know. And he ultimately finds his way to the widow who doesn't know his history with the guy, and he has to take on a false persona. And in this false persona becomes this Greek immigrant, and basically enters her life and her family's life to try and uncover answers that he could potentially save his own life.
Wow.
So that's the idea.
So that idea was brought to you by this writer.
Yes, and
Steve Mazur.
Steve Mazur.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And do you know Steve?
No.
Great guy,
I do.
terrific
He's
guy,
a
wonderful writer, and very lovely dude.
Steve, if I have in fact met you, I apologize.
Yes. And by the way, there's a drinking game for Steve as well.
So we just hit the over.
So yeah, at any rate, that was the idea
that you developed with him.
Yeah, I developed it with him for a while, and kind of didn't think it would all come together. And then next thing you know, we started to get some pieces together, and it started to happen. And we got a good cast together, and we shot it, and the movie is coming out next weekend.
Seriously?
No. I don't know when it comes out. There's two producing entities who have it, who are responsible for that, and they're kind of figuring out what. But I think probably soon this year. I'm excited about it. But it's the other part of it is after you do it, you kind of have to leave it to people to go figure out how to do it, because I don't know how they get these things out into the world.
Right. So you race through a couple of parts towards the end there in terms of we develop it for a while and then we cast it and we shot it. So just in terms of deciding to take it on, initially when you guys were developing it, were you thinking as a producer actor, or were you thinking when you started to develop it, I might actually direct this thing?
Well, I was thinking it as as a director, maybe with a part in it, but I didn't think I was going to be playing the central part in it.
Because you meant him to be younger.
Exactly, and I just didn't see. I mean, ultimately, the guy who took on this persona that he took on went Greek as opposed to Scottish or Irish or a million other things that he could have been. I spent 6 years of my life in Greece, kind of bullshitting my way through the language, and it was a major thing of trying to sort of falsely communicate yourself into a foreign place,
Right.
and that idea always stuck with me. It was an interesting thing, and to try to take that experience a little bit, and somebody trying to use the issue of a barrier of language and the foreign element and try and work their way through a story seemed like a good idea to me. So there is the Greek element that was modified for it, and once it became that, I was like, well, God, that felt right.
Yeah, why is this guy young again? Remind me, Steve Mazur, why this guy's young?
Why is he young? Why is he a kid? He doesn't want to be a kid.
Why does it need to be? Well, nobody. Haven't we had it with the 17-year-old suicidals? Let's go with the not 17.
Yeah.
So once you decide you're going to direct, you then also decide you're going to also direct yourself.
Yeah.
In your first time as a director.
Yes.
Did you talk? Because I went through this talking to other actors who turned to directing. Mm-hmm. The aforementioned Hanks and a couple of others. Did you talk to any beforehand?
Well, I talked to, I'd worked with Ricky Gervais,
Sure.
and we had done Ghost Town, and he had some experience of doing that, and he had talked pretty openly about it, and you get the feeling. I'd worked with Mel and had talked about his experience in Braveheart and stuff. I mean, you get the feeling that it's a headbangers experience. No matter what anybody else's experience is, you're going to have your own journey on this thing.
Right.
And I didn't have a sense that there was any sort of through line into how to properly do it. It's a great leap into the unknown. It's terrifying, and I think the more that I feel like if I had dug down too much, I never would have done it, because anybody you talk to, including me now talking to the next guy, is, you're going to do what?
Yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
That part seems daunting to me, and I've avoided it. And I think I'm going to continue to avoid it also, acting in it while directing.
I play golf with Doc Rivers once in a while, and Doc was saying, Greg, there's a reason the coach isn't playing.
I was like, yeah.
Wow, way to boil it down, Doc.
Thanks very much. All right.
Speaking of golf,
Yeah.
with fill the name in here. One, I mentioned the Jim Brooks connection and the As Good as It Gets career-changing turn, but it also led to golf outings with Mr. Jack Nicholson.
I did.
Which, my experience working with him was, first of all, I was shocked that he was goofy and silly at times. I thought someone that cool would be aloof. You'd have to talk about him, not to him. Mm-hmm. So I convinced myself so much about that
He was going to be this
that
other
I
person.
left him alone.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in proximity for every day out. I was on the film for 3 or 4 months. I think Jack worked a total of 10 days. In fact, I remember being part of his deal. 10 days on figure meant $5 million. So that's $500,000 a day. The only thing I remember saying to him was, do you hit the snooze alarm when you make $500,000? No, I didn't say that. I would never say that. But
All the things you didn't say to him.
yeah,
now.
here's all the things. But I really did stay out of his airspace as much as possible, just because he was too iconic that I'd convinced myself to leave him the fuck alone, even though we're technically co-stars.
Yeah.
He's working every day, you're working every day, you're on the film together the whole time. So obviously it's a vastly different experience. And you're also on location, I want to say?
Yeah, well, we shot some in New York, the majority here in California,
Okay.
though. Yeah, so he was home.
Yeah. And how soon into that process does golf come up? Because it is one of the great equalizers.
It is, and thankfully, fairly early on.
Yeah.
He invited me to play, go out to Lakeside or something and join him. You know, would you like to play around? And I was like, yeah, man, you're doing better than I do. But you don't turn that invitation down.
No.
And it was always great. He's, it was always fun. There was a time where we played like a lot. We were playing a lot, and he kind of plays his own game. I mean, he kind of half plays. He might drop a couple extra balls that goes off here. He's dropping another one. It's going over. He's just he has his own version,
which makes sense.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
He's the biggest movie star in the world. He play do whatever the hell you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, but he occasionally, and of course, one of the great rounds of all time, and I think it probably was reminiscent of your experience in just being odd. I had kind of gotten through, never totally. I'd be lying to say that I ever got to the point where I was like, "Oh, Jag, what's up?"
Yeah.
I think I was still very conscious always that
He had just come from Mount Rushmore.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And but he says one time we're going to go play. We end up with Joe Pesci,
Sure.
Jack, and Dennis Hopper.
Oh boy.
And they are recounting story after story, and they're taking us down Easy Rider Road and everything else. And it was a memorable day. I have the kind of brain where I can memorize lines for a script, but if you say to me, "Well, tell me about that day," I'd be like, "I can't really tell you."
I'm the worst.
My 8-year-old is now writing down a diary. She's actually keeping a list of things day to day. I'm like, "Honey, that's the greatest thing you'll do in your life."
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really capture any of that sense. But I mean, I have a sense, obviously, of some of the moments, some of the great times. Through my life as I look back, but I mean, in terms of remembering specifics, it's a great thing to write stuff down, isn't it?
It's the idea of making small talk with someone who's bigger than life, like when you're on the tee and you're waiting for the next group to clear the fairway.
Right.
There's just one thing the game of golf can almost guarantee are those moments where you're either going to shoot the shit in those moments or you're not. And if you're not shooting the shit, why are you golfing with this person?
Yeah, you're not. That game's not happening again.
Yeah,
that's a one-off.
So I guess you would talk about kids or whatever was in the news like anybody else.
Yeah, I think it was.
Well, that's the other thing that never ceases to surprise me is at the end of the day, oh, that's right, he's just a guy.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
He's just a guy wearing shoes.
That's right.
Who got up that day to swing at a ball. I'm
going to tell him you said that, and you can deal with the repercussions.
He was unbelievably sweet to me, and we had a couple of astonishingly great moments, but I was too in awe to, and also, it was probably the fact that we only had 10 days of shooting, and
I can't believe you did that quickly. I mean, I'm thinking of the day rate of 500,000. I don't know what his rate was on As Good as It Gets. I don't think there was a rate like that. And if you were to actually amateurize the amount of days we shot, he was probably making about $650 a day or something. I mean, because we shot forever on that movie.
Yeah. Jim Brooks has become a pal. I host a weekly poker game, and he's become a semi-regular. And he's forever.
Is he good at poker?
He is good. He'll surprise you. Also, it's a weekly game, so and there's maybe the roster is 15 to 18 players. The table seats 9. I'm one of them, so it's 8 guys and me. And it doesn't rotate too much beyond that. It's pretty much that sort of core group. So a couple of. So
what feels like there'd be an obligation to be really clever.
The great thing is that after, because you play 6 hours.
Not that I'm upset about not being invited. I'm just saying it seems like if you were playing in the game, you would be.
There's no sweeter music to my ears that you would like to play.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
No, but seriously, I'm not even kidding. So what happens is, the money kind of rotates around the table. Nobody wins every week, nobody loses every week. So we're kind of letting the money circulate among the same players because this has been going on for 7 or 8 years.
Right.
And in that course of time, I started to realize that he's a great laugh, he's a great listener, and he holds back on the gems
Yeah.
that make everybody else laugh. But
Yeah.
when they get fired,
Oh man.
they're showstoppers.
Oh my gosh.
It's unbelievable. But he's also a terrific laugh.
Yeah.
But I've only worked with him once, and it was quite recently. I did an episode of The Simpsons, and for whatever reason, his reason, he decided to direct the episode, which apparently he doesn't do much. And just being directed, instantly felt like I wanted to please my father. And I was going to let him down no matter what came out of me. Because he's Mount Rushmore for me, of course, comedically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also very particular about how he wanted it done.
Yeah.
And I've since heard from others that's the deal.
Yeah.
And when he hears it, right,
That's right.
he knows it, and we move on.
That's right.
But until then, you're going to be doing this again.
There was, and by the way, the laugh is. It's just joyous, isn't it? I mean, it's just full of joy.
Yeah.
And
It really is.
but I remember. I think I'm allowed to tell this story, aren't I? Am I allowed to? Yeah, I think I'm allowed to tell. We were shooting the scene in As Good as It Gets, where I am in the back of the car. We have gone on this road trip.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get this story out, and every time I talk, Jack's, because he's trying to show off for Helen, is like taking over the stage, and he's going, "That's not it." Da, 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 da. And he goes, the life is supposed to be, for other people, it's sailboats, it's whatever. I don't remember the line, but
Sure.
Sailboats, happiness, and macaroni salad, and we hear, cut! And Jim comes out, and he pops his head in the window. We're on a stage, and he says, Jack, actually, it's noodle salad. It's not macaroni, it's noodle salad. And so Jack's like, yeah, but I don't really know what noodle salad is. I think it's macaroni salad. So they're having a little discussion about this, and ultimately this goes back and forth a few times, and finally Jim, I think he gave up, and we went on and we shot the movie. Cut to a year later in reshoots, we are on a sound stage where we've switched back, and sure enough we're doing this scene again.
Oh, God.
And it gets to noodle salad. And he says, Jack does the line, noodle salad. He agrees with Jim, and da-da-da-da. And sure enough, when you watch the movie, the line is noodle salad. And it's so right. I mean, it really is. It was something that Jim heard.
Yeah.
It was a sound. It was
Yeah.
an idea.
Yeah.
And I heard a 3-hour debate on noodles versus macaronis and what kind of salads people make. But he was right about the sound of it, just in the sense that it is a guy, like you say, who can hear a musical note and just tell you that it's right.
That's it. That is it. And one of the things I'm very curious about your experience directing is, if you do wait through many years of experience, as we ultimately both did, to then be the guy who's listening and waiting to hear it right, you're now trusting your instincts.
Right.
As actors, we have to trust our instincts too, but we're not that aware of the big picture, of the whole picture.
That's right.
It is just a couple of minutes of that day's work. Whereas the responsibility to hear the big picture at all times and have it in your mind, it's a different,
Totally different animal.
skill set too. And so when I'm reminded of or think about the experience with Jim, who has, what was the once the writer-director, also Jason Reitman, was at the poker table, and he and Jim have known each other a really long time, and they're apparently quite close, like a mentor for Jim's kind of situation. And at one point, Jason looked up from his phone and he said, Jim, it says here you've got 19 Emmys? Is that true? And Jim, there's no ego, because his humility doesn't allow him to have any ego.
True, right.
Even though there's very few people who are entitled
Right.
to have an ego as much as he is. And with no ego and absolute sincerity, he looked up and said, I think it's more. And it's the moment that I always come back to with him, because it sort of crystallized many things about his character.
Yeah.
But also why this is a guy who, when he says it's noodle salad, you as an actor have to figure out why on your own, but just trust.
Yes, exactly.
That it's going to be noodle salad.
Also, just that whenever he's depicted on The Simpsons, it's basically just a still shot of rich Uncle Pennybags from Monopoly, like the Monopoly man, with stacks of cash, Emmys, and Oscars surrounding him.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, he still remains the only first-time director to win. The first-time writer-director of a film to win Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Picture.
Yeah.
Never happened before or since, as a first-timer. Having already done all those years of Mary Tyler Moore and Taxi and everything else.
Which is a whole different animal, a whole different skill set, I think.
Right.
Obviously.
But it all leads to becoming a better writer and becoming someone who can hear that musical note. Right? So when you're on set and you're directing and you hear a false note, was it easy at first, natural to, because I found that he mentioned the auditioning process. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's designed to fail. And so I just picked up the phone and called people and asked them to do the movie.
Yep.
And so then once you hire the right people, because you know what they're capable of, I feel like the last thing in the world is that they need to hear any specifics from me. So I would go in and say, I need about 17% less. And then I would walk away. And then they would sort of giggle and then figure out whatever it is, how differently to do it.
Right.
What was your experience like in those moments where it's just not ringing right?
Yeah, not a lot of conversation.
Right.
I mean, was it Gene Hackman who said,
faster, slower, louder, softer?
There you go.
Those are the only 4 words I want to hear.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't speed. Faster seemed to matter,
right?
Or take your time or faster. But in terms of unlike Jim, who has this incredible, I think, ability not only to express, I think he can actually tell you why he's right about this.
Right.
Like, I don't know what the line he would give you, but he would be able to, express that. Whereas with me, I, probably similar to you, I just would know if it was a little off, and you could give small little adjustments. And, you're dealing with professionals, and at the end of the day, they're, they go and they take it, and more often than not, they make it something better than what you ever could have imagined.
Yes.
And isn't that fun? That's the joy, I think, of any director who's doing, anything. Is if you have a great career happening out there, you're working with great people, and you're giving them these ideas. You're giving them, maybe a few little bits and pieces and nuggets along the way, but then they're going off and they're turning it into something you didn't anticipate, and you're. Maybe at times that's the wrong door they're opening and you have to gently close it, but more often than not, if you're open to the discovery, there's great stuff happening there, and getting out of the way of your own preconceived specificness of what it has to be is, that's hard.
Yeah. Especially when you developed the material as long as you did, the way you said.
Yeah.
And then
you start to have an idea of what it's supposed to be, so you want to be real in the moment and say, God, well, maybe this isn't supposed to be this.
Right.
And certainly, actors have different ideas, and they're like, well, I didn't see it as a A, I saw it as a B. A B? Wow. Okay. And so there's that process happening too.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is compounded in terms of its difficulty when you're not just coaching the team, which is like that, because you're trying to do your thing and you're trying to kind of manage that, and at the same time, which is hard enough. And I think that was, that's something that you learn just with time as an actor, is that just balancing your own stuff, managing your own world in that is takes some effort.
Well, something even
Not for you.
No. It's something as simple as you're in a scene with another actor.
Yeah.
All right. You're directing. You're acting. You're in a scene with another actor. So when you're in that moment of the scene, are you thinking about them, your scene partner, as a director or an actor? Because as an actor, you're supposed to disappear from everything else.
Yeah.
And be present.
Yeah.
That's all we have to do.
Right.
Is be present.
Right.
But if there's that's the thing that always intimidated me, that I would be thinking, no, the side of his face is in the shadow.
Yeah.
I don't need.
Yeah, I mean, to remove yourself.
You just have to compartmentalize.
I think, I did, in my experience was that there were moments, I had both.
Right.
I had moments where I was like, well, God damn it, man, we just did that, and I was just doing it. It was great. It felt great, and it was all happening with the actors, and I was completely lost in whatever little bit of business we were taking care of that day. And there were other times where, yes, shadows on the face, or thinking about, this scene's taking longer than I ever thought, and we got to go from here to the next scene, which is not going to cut very well. What did you say?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's another skill set you learn.
yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, you learn something.
But I think we're probably the technology, which you're so fond of.
I am.
Is probably creating a whole army of people who are going to be even more adept at doing both, at multitasking, at having the facility to do 7 things at once, then, in a way, in reverting, as technology goes forward, it's causing sort of people to revert back to the simple, we have to make this all work, and they're learning how to do lots of different things at once.
It probably becomes as organic and easy as just directing in terms of trusting your instincts. And once you can trust those instincts, you can be present in the scene and not think about it. And then say cut at some point, or have your first AD say cut, and then look out to him and the cinematographer and say, did we get that?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Jerry Lewis, obviously famous for creating video assist so that he could watch playback after directing himself in a scene.
Yes. Which we did have, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have been talking about it for a while, and we'd have to check the tape to be sure, but I don't think you have once said the name of this film that you directed.
Sorry.
No, it's
The
quite all right.
Philosophy of film.
Right, I want our audience.
Thank you, Sam.
You're very welcome
Merry
to be able to know
Christmas.
where to
Thanks,
find
Sam.
it once it.
Come on,
is
everybody.
available.
Let's
thank you.
over here.
Thank you so much,
Get
guys.
off the phone.
Thank you. That's why
I think they both reminded us at least once why they're sitting there.
Didn't you say Fred Willard was on this show?
He has been.
So we showed the kids Waiting for Guffman recently. What a gem that is. And when Catherine O'Hara is sitting with Fred and they're being interviewed and they're excited, the Corky has heard their audition, and they're just talking about, he's talking about what his skill set is, and she says, Fred, Bob's the one who taught me to just, Bob's the one who taught me to ignore my instincts.
That's right.
Which I always loved. I always loved that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God.
So
he just
dry.
taught me, and she's just like dead on. He's the one who taught me how to just ignore my instincts. So brilliant.
We have a segment on the show called Famous Questions.
Wow.
Run the graphic. Don't have one still.
Wow.
How is that possible?
We've tried.
This is a segment where these famous questions are simply questions from famous people that you and I know. I say I because I have to reach out to them and ask them to write a question.
Are these questions
for
for
you.
me?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Specifically to you.
God.
The first one I can do in his voice. Ready?
Yeah?
Ask him if he would publicly state that he is ready to take me and my wife out to dinner at his expense, including tip, before he runs out of town again, and what we both know is nothing but a dodge to get out of his commitment to having made this offer. A nod and a chuckle won't get him out of this. We just saw both. I need to hear a vocal yes, Kevin, followed by an almost immediate phone call from Greg. Please monitor this for me, Kevin, because it's been going on too long. How do you respond?
I won that man an Oscar. And when we go and break bread and we dine,
That's right.
which doesn't happen enough, but the next time it does, and probably the subsequent times, you will pick up the tab. And you will say thank you.
That's right.
Thank you.
Mr. Oscar.
Yeah, exactly. Once you win an Oscar, you always pick up the bill, I think.
I think so.
I mean, there's not even an argument about that. It's
I would like to think-
the fact that he's like even wasting this much time writing this letter out when it's absolutely clearly, I think this is Academy rule stuff, right?
Yeah.
He has to pick up
It's
the
in
bill.
the Academy. Yeah. I'd like to think just once after you win that particular trophy, you bring it to dinner,
Yeah.
but you don't reveal it until the check comes. And then you just set the trophy there next to the check. But I think that would suggest to whoever you're dining with that they're picking it up.
By the way, he doesn't only include himself for the free dinner, he brings the wife too.
Right.
You know, Susan's coming too.
Now, here's good news for you, I found out, if you're going to be around, because he did mention in a follow-up that he's coming to town next week.
Yes.
He's going to be here for 3 months to work on a series.
I have heard that.
Okay.
I don't know what series. He was very mysterious about it. Do you have any information?
Nope, he does not share this. You got to beat it out of him.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's got a bomb he's about to drop on us all. Alan Arkin stars in.
Yeah. You know what? It's none of your business.
Right.
All right. The next a famous question. I won't do his accent as much as I love to because your better half is from the same neck of the woods. Ricky Gervais writes, I love Greg. In parentheses, he does a great impression of Michael Keaton, by the way, which before you leave, we're going to need because couldn't be bigger fans. He's written 2 questions. First one, would he rather have giant tentacles for legs and sort of slither around, or have lobster claws for arms? Please take this seriously, as seriously as he did when he wrote it.
Could you repeat the question?
I'm happy to. Would he rather have... I love the sincerity with which you asked. Could you please repeat the question? Would he rather have giant tentacles for legs? Giant tentacles for legs.
Not genital tentacles,
Nope.
right? Okay, just want to make clear.
Would he like to have giant tentacles for legs and sort of slither around? Or have lobster claws for arms and then no additional descriptive mention of what you're going to do with lobster claws like he does with tentacles for legs?
Gosh, I think I'll take tentacles.
Right.
That's correct.
I think I'll take tentacles. I'm right on that, aren't I?
Yeah. Kind of get about.
I still have my upper body to what with
lobster
the
claws for
the
arms?
claws sounds horrible.
You got to be able to work a remote control.
Yeah,
Because you're not really going anywhere once you're slithering around. You're in front of the TV most of the day.
And
I mean, the question calls into Ricky Gervais's own common sense, really, to even be throwing that idea out there.
Yeah,
as
like
if
there's an
like
option.
a choice.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
let's see if
He's
he does.
from England, right?
You know what? I bet you if you asked Eddie Izzard, he'd go for the claws because he likes to run.
Wow. There we have it. He can run
Is
easily.
he a runner?
Oh, he's
Yeah.
a big runner.
Is he really?
He came on this show a number of years ago, and I, in the research, found out that he decided, out of thin blue, that he would run marathons.
Wow.
Yep. And
Is he like a slimmed down guy now?
nope. And his preparation was doing one. So I said, I read in the research that you started running marathons and in fact set out to run something like, and I'm nearly correct, 57 in 65 days. It was marathons.
No.
Yes. Look it up. Google it. So I said to him, it said here in the research, Eddie, that your own preparation was to just do one.
Right.
So that's not true. So tell me how it actually did go down. And he said, that is how it happened. I just started with doing one. You didn't run for 6 months to prepare like every other human being. You just decided I could run 35 miles. Why couldn't I? And I would have to refer you to the interview where he does just say it in typical British, self-effacing and also, I just did one.
Very Forrest Gumpian. you just start running.
35 miles.
Wow.
And then decide I'm going to do another one tomorrow.
We did Mystery Men. I worked with him in Mystery Men.
Jamie is a huge fan. I'm going to go to you for a question, Mystery Man question next, so gear up. I want to give you a little prep because I normally just go to you and then we get the deer in the headlights. Question 2 from Ricky Gervais. 2 out of 2.
Okay.
And who would think after the first one he'd have the nerve to offer up a second? But he did. If Greg had a superpower, that his kiss would cure anything on any part of the human body, and you, Kevin, had mild anal fungus, would he help you? Again, the obvious answer is it sort of precludes the necessity to answer.
Oh, God.
Right?
What is the disease you have?
Anal fungus. It's mild.
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 It shall be fine.
Fine. I see you scratching a little bit over there in your chair. You're going to be just fine.
Who doesn't have a mild
anal
fungus to begin
fungus.
with?
It's this little move.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just unless you're using the baby whites every time, you're going to have a little bit of this. So thank you, Ricky.
Ricky Gervais.
My experience of working with him as an actor, and he was acting and directing, was that he finished every day early.
Yes, 6 o'clock.
By design.
Yes, gets grumpy after that hour, by the way.
Yeah.
I envision he goes home and puts that little sleeping cap on with a ball on the end of it. Has his little slip booties on.
Like
and by
right out of a Charles Dickens novel.
Honestly, at 7 p.m., he is out, I think. But
Lights
go
out.
ahead.
He is. They're like you. He and Jane.
Yeah.
They're asleep by 9:17 and up at 7:30.
That's right.
Or earlier.
See, I've been cooking a lot at home lately, but really it's just my trick to get Kevin to stay in so I could be in bed at a decent time.
Because if you don't do that, he's going to be, he's a
gonna
night
be like,
owl.
let's go out. Well, he still stays up, but I've been like, no, I cooked. Let's stay in.
Well, you are that type. I have a sense. We haven't worked together. But
Well, through stand-up.
I also remember I was listening to one of your podcasts. You were saying you're the type that just like if you could go trailer to trailer and just, hey, what are you doing in there? I'm not that way.
You hole up?
I don't hole up. But I'm not running an Acme operation either where I'm going door to door. I'm a little I'm uncomfortable kind of just walking over, and I always assume that's people's, this is the Midwest probably, right? The very waspy Midwest.
That's how I was with Jack. I mean, I go through that too, or I just leave people alone. But also, there was suggested very early on, if we're not having fun doing this, what is the fun?
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure. In fact, I actually do leave the door open more, and I am more conscious of it, I think, as time goes on. But it used to be, I just assume you went in there, and the only option you had was to close the door and turn, and be weirdly, unavailable.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear from us.
Yeah.
Right? That's a fair assumption.
It's not true, though.
No.
Get out there. Open the windows.
As it turns out, get out there.
Yeah.
All right, we have just almost hit the 90-minute mark. Again, who knew? We're just talking.
Wow.
Just two idiots talking. So I'm going to just run down a couple of names and see if whatever, just stream of conscious, whatever comes to you. Mike Nichols.
Brilliant, obviously lovely, and I remember a long table on the Sony lot, us doing a table read, Gary Shandling there, and him getting along fabulously. By the end of the movie, they weren't getting along so well, but still, he was divine.
Yeah, and another one of those, forgive the otherwise famous term, touched by an angel. This was a guy who was from another planet in terms of his abilities and instincts.
Yeah. He had he just, first of all, he had the lovely voice. It was like this velvety, just great thing, and he had a way of making it all feel like just a lovely little cocktail party, and yet he was another guy who knew the sound and searching for a sound, and a real artist, obviously.
Until we got it.
Yeah, until we got it.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch any of the early Nichols and May stuff?
Yes. Incredible, right?
Not even fair to the others.
Yeah.
In terms of their timing in there.
Yeah. Can you YouTube that?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah. And I encourage it right now.
All right.
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi, hey buddy, one of my favorites. Hey buddy.
We never got to Michael Keaton. We got to get to Michael Keaton, man. You have to have
Sam
a question.
Raimi is one of the great guys in the business, bar none. Dear
buddy.
friend, and just a wonderful artist who is honestly, he could do. He could do the smallest thing, the grandest thing, and he would still treat it the same way, with the same sort of honest humility and just the effort to try and make it as good as it can be. And he's sensitive to people, incredibly sensitive human being. Am I supposed to give you one-word answers on each of these people? Okay, because I was failing.
No. I was hoping that just by mentioning these people's names that you've worked with, that it would spark what you're giving us.
Yeah.
Also, the suit and tie thing every day, love to death.
Yeah.
I remember when talking about looking people up when you decide to direct in terms of advice and stuff. He said, "Come to the office, buddy." And he was prepping. Did he do Spider-Man, the second one? He did. I don't remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did.
So he was prepping the second one. Yeah. And he said, "Come to the office." And so we talked and hung out. And he said, "Are you going to storyboard?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Come with me," and walked me over to his storyboard guy and said, "What are you working on?" And he said what he was storyboarding. He said, "Spend some time with him. This will be good for you."
Yeah.
Just generous of other people's time, not only his own. Yeah, love him so much. Jamie, Mystery Men question.
Yes. Well, first I want to share a story about Mystery Men because I have not only do I love the movie, I have an extremely fond memory of the movie. So I think it also plays into the fact of my enjoyment of the film. But my very best friend, Jackie Stoughton, and I saw it was our first day of our senior year of high school. And not that the day was bad or anything, but I think we were just like building it up like it's our first day of senior year, we're going to rule the schools, it's going to be great. And it was just a typical day. So it was like kind of a letdown. Nothing bad happened, it was just like we had amped it up too much. So we decided to go to, which I now believe is a dead mall, J-Mac, you can correct me on this, Northway Mall. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but they had a cheap movie theater there. And we're like, oh, let's see Mystery Men. We didn't see it, this looks like fun. And we loved it. So I have like a really great, it saved the day for us. Like we were really glad.
Saved an important day.
Yeah, like it was like, it made, like I have a better memory of seeing that movie, my first day of senior year, than I do of like what happened at school that day. Like I love that movie so much.
And when you watch me get psycho defraculated emotionally, take us to that moment. Tears?
I'm not a great
Yeah,
actress.
tears?
She's laughing too much.
I'm not a good actress. But I did think of it.
Cheers, not tears.
Yeah, cheers. She's a writer. She can't recreate the moment. Sammy, follow
I have a
up?
question though.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, the question.
Yeah, well, you have
Please.
to think of a question. So, your character, Captain Amazing, I believe, is it your character's name?
Correct, Captain
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, you, everybody else had like unique superpowers, and you were just kind of like the general, like the overall like superhero. What would be if you could choose to have like a unique superpower, what would yours be?
In real life?
In real life,
Oh.
Wow, any superpower.
That we know of.
all
But,
the
like,
basics.
Theirs were like bizarre.
Yeah, was that what you're saying? Are you saying like
'cause it
those
was,
kinds of
Yeah,
things?
because like William H. Macy like was good at shoveling, and like Hank
Right.
Azaria's character,
Bowling
the
or
Blue
something.
Raja, that was Jean Garofalo.
It was the fork, wasn't he?
Yeah, he would have the fork. The,
Threw
but
silverware or
the Blue
something.
Raja was his name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I would shoot. I could open my mouth and kill you with a golf ball shooting out of it.
That's right.
Like right now, like if we're talking, I'm not going to do that to you. I wouldn't do that. But if somebody said something that you didn't like, I could just. And then, and then it would
fantastic.
fire out at them, and they give me a little kickback actually when I did it. And then I shake it off and look down at it. See you around.
I guess he'll think twice
Golf
before
ball is very
teeing off on
specific
me.
and important because you could hurt somebody with a golf ball.
Oh yeah.
It's very
oh
specific.
yeah.
And we've already established his interest in the game itself.
Yeah.
Sammy, follow up?
I have a quick question, not
Sure.
about Mystery Men, and there is no story that accompanies it. It's just a straight question about the film Autofocus.
Yes.
Which is one of my all-time favorites. You are spectacular in it. And my question is, I don't know if you've followed the story in the last several years, but there's been supposed DNA evidence that contradicts what the movie essentially posits, that John Carpenter is the one who ended Bob Crane's life. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm just curious as the actor who played Bob Crane.
Well, I don't keep up on whatever's
Fair
the
enough.
latest, but that speculation was there when we made the movie,
Sure.
and nobody. I mean, Paul Schrader was so deeply, entranced in the detail and minutia of that story. He said that given the evidence, and if he had been on the jury, he for sure would have acquitted, would have acquitted John, but that he was quite convinced, based on the other evidence,
Sure.
that he was guilty. And so I don't know. I mean, DNA. I just did a movie where I play a lawyer, Justin Brooks, who runs the California Innocence Project. This is an amazing guy. They work out of San Diego, out of the Western School of Law. They've exonerated 30 people, and these aren't just kind of bullshit technicalities. They do this based on work and a lot of effort, but sometimes it does certainly involve DNA evidence. But it really got me thinking, and of course, not that I'm not aware of that ongoing question. My God, can you imagine somebody being falsely accused and spending their and just the horror of that.
Yeah.
And I'm so conscious of that it's a weird world, with DNA evidence, to look back on any crime now and say, well, did they do it?
Right.
Did they not do it? Whether some evidence could show up based on an old sitting in a cardboard box at the downtown Los Angeles that could totally exonerate somebody. So I don't keep up on the story. Maybe there's something to suggest of John's innocence, but I know at the time that we did it, and for a few years after, just to keep in touch with Paul, it was pretty clear that that he was probably the one.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yep, I think so too. The evidence was not anything conclusive. It
Right.
just cast a little bit more doubt, but not really far enough in either direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, J-Mac has confirmed Northway Mall is dead.
Thank you for that,
Jay.
J-Mac.
What did she say?
Northway Mall is dead.
Okay.
Yeah. I felt your
That's the real issue here.
I felt your concern when she mentioned it.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, it's in Pittsburgh, which brings us back to Michael Keaton. 4 seconds.
I'll give you 4 seconds, which
Yeah.
is just this. All right. I'm Batman.
Wow. That is phenomenal. Because a lot of times you just get the quickie Michael Keaton, just of him being startled. That's everyone's go-to of the quick Michael Keaton. That was thorough and thoughtful.
Oh.
Thank you for that.
You're
He's
welcome.
one of those. He's a De Niro, as in the impression. It's a facial impression. It's not like you don't even have to say anything.
You don't even have, as it
Like
turns
Kevin
out.
does a De Niro, but it's just he doesn't even speak.
If you go through all the machinations of just him thinking, in the case of Keaton there, yeah.
Yeah.
But if everyone does that.
He was so unbelievably great in Birdman.
Yes.
2 years ago or whatever.
Just ridiculous, right?
But I just know. First of all, I'm always a huge fan of his. Have been for years. So
Yeah.
that's done lovingly. I don't even know what I'm doing in that strange thing. I just remember, I think it was Clean and Sober, which he was very good in.
So good.
I watched that recently.
I got this chip, and I remember that kind of stuck with me, and I don't know. I don't really do a good Michael Keaton, but it's an idea in my head that I have a Michael Keaton.
But I'll be honest with you, that is the thing about my experience of doing impersonations and feeling comfortable doing them in front of strangers, is that it becomes a possession. You actually go into the thought process of that person in the moment.
Right.
You're no longer thinking your own thoughts.
Right.
You're actually,
and if you're doing it, I mean, you're like, I don't know if this is going outside my broadcast zone here,
Right.
but I'm owning it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm that guy right now.
Yeah. I'm lost. I'm in this person. I don't care or know if anyone else is recognizing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you have could you form a list of number one, the most guy that you are when you do it all the way down to number 30 and rank them, or is it one size fits all, or is it in the moment?
Oh, they're definitely different rankings for sure. I personally
Based
not
on confidence.
made a list. Confidence and also happiness for me.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You know, I've mentioned a few times, certainly, that I think funnier and faster when doing Albert Brooks
Yeah.
than I do in my own thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Right? He's such a comedic giant for me, and so dialed into his pattern of little asides that run through every sentence that he's saying. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with maybe something from Lost in America.
Please, if you would, please. Come on, just give us a
It's only quid pro quo.
Please?
It's only right.
Yeah, it's if you have to.
Just trying to think about where exactly to jump in. Don't say any part of the words. If you're in a forest, you see a bird around sticks, you point and say, look, nest, and eggs, things over easy on toast. Don't say any part of the words. All right, I'm going to give you a lecture and a gentle beating, and then I'll have you write 500 times on the sidewalk, I lost the nest egg, I lost the nest egg, lost the nest egg. Yeah, there are passages of modern romance that I could do just over and over and over again because it makes me so damn happy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But for a while I did another podcast called Talkin' Walkin' where I just had someone over to the house and it was two people talking in conversation, minutia, my dinner with Andre kind of situation where no real topics are going anywhere. And I spoke only as Christopher Walken, and we didn't mention him or me anywhere in the conversation.
The whole time.
Just inexplicably, I'm only speaking, and that was getting lost the most I've ever been, for sure, because it was conversational, it wasn't pushing an impression.
Was it an interview?
It was just conversation.
Just conversation.
Yeah, there's about 15 of them online now called Talkin' Walkin'.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's probably a couple of them that are worth listening to. A couple of films coming out in the new year, and then I'll let you go. Strange but True.
Yes, worked with Amy Ryan, Brian Cox, Fred Berger, who produced La La Land, brought the script to me. It's a fantastic script. Just finishing it. I don't know where we'll see it or when, but I would imagine soon.
Director? Who directed?
Rowan. I'm escaping his last name. God darn it! You're going to hit me on all sorts of names.
Look up Strange but True, folks. You can answer that question for yourself. And the other film was Red Sea Diving Resort. This looks incredible.
Yes, Gideon Raff directed and wrote. He did Homeland and a number of really impressive things. And he found this story a little Argo-esque, I guess. It takes place in the late 70s, and it was the Ethiopian Jewish crisis. There were a number of Ethiopian Jews being persecuted. They crossed over into the Sudan, where basically they were in a refugee status, and their conditions went from bad to worse. And the Mossad, Chris Evans plays the head of the Mossad, and they went over to try to help these people out, and went a little bit off the book and very covert stuff. But this is all true. They took over an old, dilapidated hotel not far from the refugee camps, and they called it the Red Sea Diving Resort. And at night, they were getting small groups of these refugees back, out of the camps and to Israel. And there was a Muslim guy obviously running the country who had all sorts of political issues and was kind of not open to that idea. So they started to realize some sort of train out of these camps was happening, but they weren't sure what was exactly how. And I playing my father, actually, in a way, because my dad worked with the American Embassy, a U.S. Embassy element that was also involved in this and had their own issues and their own agenda.
Sure.
But ultimately, did work with them, and they did get out thousands of these people and got them to Israel on a mass evacuation when the shit was really hitting the fan.
Good Lord.
Rowan Athade?
What's that?
The director of Strange but True, Rowan Athade.
Yes, Rowan Attenay. Yes,
Attenay.
yes.
That's how it's pronounced.
Who's a
It's
wonderful
just Rowan
guy.
Atkinson, really.
That's right.
I'm sorry, he's a great guy, British, and he's going to kill me.
Same.
Strange But True is that one, and then Red Sea Diving Resort. Look for both of those.
Also, one of the greatest movies of this past year.
Please.
Sweet, touching, wonderful. It's on VOD now. Brigsby Bear, which, my God, such a fun movie.
By the way, and it really wasn't seen that much. And Kyle Mooney from SNL.
We love him.
Has he been on the show?
No, we love him.
He's the guy, and he's it's one of the great performances, I'm telling you, of last year. He's wonderful in it, and thank you. I really love the movie too.
Thanks for bringing it up, because I watched the trailer of it in preparation for this and then completely forgot about it. But it almost seemed like being there. There was a little element of the Peter Sellers.
I think it goes in its own world for sure, but it's not a off base reference.
Right. All right. It's time for Kevin's pop quiz. Between 5 and 15 points possible for each of the 3 questions. Once the final score is tabulated, it'll be posted on our website along with the current standing among the top 100. Are you ready?
Yes.
Question number 1: Sammy Davis Jr. or Ann B. Davis?
Sammy Davis Jr.
Correct. Question 2: Carl Weathers or the weather in Carlsbad?
Carl Weathers.
Also correct. Last question: Keith?
Sorry.
That's the correct answer as well. All right. We close out.
Is that just to make sure that they're paying attention?
Yes.
Have you had people dozing off? Was Arkin asleep at that point? Or what? That's like a trick question.
Oh, no, it's completely a trick question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you say Keith?
Yep. That's all I said.
Okay.
After offering up 2 this or that questions prior, I went with just one option. Because you were kind enough to give us the Michael Keaton, there will be no Larry King game on this one unless you want to partake. It's reenacting that moment on the Larry King show where he, right before going to the phone.
Tucson, Arizona, hello.
Yes, right. He would look down the barrel of the camera and share something about himself that no one cared about or needed to know. He would just share some little tidbit about his morning, his preference of Hydrox over Oreo, some ridiculous Larry King-ism, and then he would go to the phones. That's how you play the game. So bad Larry King impression, Larry decides to share something that no one needs to know about him, not about you. You're doing him. And then go to the phones, and if the name of the city is funny sounding, that's not going to hurt. There's your camera when you're ready. It's the Larry King game.
Is this optional?
That's how you play the Larry King game, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for that. And there's our guest, Greg Kinnear. Thank you, pal, honestly, for coming by and spending some of your Sunday with us.
Total blast. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll follow up with more news about all those films, including The Philosophy of Phil.
That's right.
Yeah.
And did a movie. In fact, did you ever work with Tom Shadyac?
No, but of course.
Comedy guy who is, did this drama. And I did that. We just finished in Memphis, and it's based on the story Brian Banks, young man wrongly accused of raping this girl. He's 16 years old, lost the key years of his life. He was a football standout protege, being scouted by Pete Carroll at SC, and had a big career ahead of him. And he was imprisoned, and ultimately, Justin Brooks and this California Innocence Project that I was not just pulling out of thin air, undertook the very difficult process of basically getting him out and getting his conviction overturned. He went on to have a career with the Atlanta Falcons.
What?
It's an incredible story. You can Google it. Brian Banks, and Brian is a. I just want to say, because we're talking about lots of good people here today. This is an extraordinary guy. Who is
also the courage and wherewithal to withstand that time
and has let it go. I mean, he's not full of hate and anger. He's full of positivity and has let this not define him. It's one of those great stories. So. Sorry to throw that in at the end, but
please,
all of a sudden I decided to throw that in at the end.
Wildly inspiring.
The Larry King thing would have probably been good too, but...
No, you chose correctly. Oh man, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Thanks, Kevin.
truly.
Thank you.
Please sit there uncomfortably for 42 seconds while I wrap things up for the folks at home.
Here we go.
And ship to shore. The floor director today, Kenny Chen, Dr. Evil Chen. Thank you again for those pineapple-filled cakes from Taiwan. at the holidays. They were mostly enjoyable. Luke Allen, thanks for being with us again. You make it all possible. Speaking of which, Ryan Noodle returns up there in the crow's nest with J-Mac, reminding us which malls are still closed. Sammy and Jamie, thank you, as always.
That movie theater, I was just reminiscing with J-Mac, that movie theater, because it would show like older movies for like cheap.
Sure.
But I saw so many important movies there, like after the fact. I was just going down a list. I saw like That Thing You Do, Sixth Sense.
Wow.
I saw Home Alone there, Ghost.
What?
American Beauty, Rushmore I saw there. So many important movies.
Rushmore. Wow.
And Mystery Men.
Let's go back to Rushmore. No.
Let's stay with Mr.
Jaden Fox on makeup.
And Multiplicity.
Corey
I saw
Levin
there.
on post, and Multiplicity bringing it all back as everything should to Michael Keaton. Until next time, and as always, David Harbour.
What the hell?
Sheriff Hop in Stranger Things.
338 shows.
I just wanted to sign off saying David Harbour.
I love it.
Keith. It's Keith.
I'm